Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gannon, alongside my partner, Jack Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. If you now have the chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at justsaying, no GWJS for article and video updates. And don't forget to check us out on Spotify at Just Saying Football. We like to be in your ears. We want to be there, especially with this Week 17.
Heck yeah.
Some playoff implications on the line. Most of the teams secured right now. If you're in the NFC. So let's just jump right into our blowout games. We have the Denver Broncos making their way to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Kansas City's favored in this one by minus 13.5. Over under here of 45.
Too small of a line.
Yeah, too small. And Nathaniel Hackett was just fired. So I'm going Kansas City.
It is crap city in Denver right now. Sorry, Denver fans. You know, the NFL loves you. You've been a successful franchise.
Amazon loved you.
You know, but I got to tell you, man, you got too many primetime. You got more primetime games than wins this season. And we saw what you did on Christmas last week. Patrick Starr was laughing at you. The whole city of L.A. was laughing at you. I mean, man, you made Cam Akers look like Derrick Henry. And I think this week I'm going to go right with Kansas City, like my friend here. I would stay away from that over-under. Last time Mahomes played them, he had 3 interceptions, 3 touchdowns. So, you know, there's something there that they can do something weird. But just got a quick question for you. Pat Mahomes, 280 yards away from 5,000. Does he get it this game, or does he get it next game?
I think he gets it this game. Absolutely, absolutely. But let's keep this moving along. You said everything I wanted to say for the Broncos, so we're good. Both going Casey. Let's move it along into our MAC games. One of the Indianapolis Colts making their way to New York to take on the Giants. Giants are favored in this one by minus 5.5. Over under here at 39.5. Now, we watched the Giants game together against the Vikings. I'm so sorry for the loss.
Yeah. Great game, though. We think it was a good game.
we do thank God it was a great game. I'm going with the Giants out the gate here. Indianapolis Colts, doesn't matter who you're putting in at quarterback, it is not the solution. Nick Foles, 3 interceptions last week. If it's Sam Ehlinger, if it's Matt Ryan, the sitting, the starting, the sitting, the starting, it's up and down, it's left, it's right. I don't like it. You got to stay far away from them. Giants defense is really, really good. They held the Vikings offense in check for the most part. Justin Jefferson does what Justin Jefferson does and found the openings late in the game. They don't have that on the Colts team. They don't have Jonathan Taylor currently on that team. I really like the Giants in this one. Daniel Jones had a great game last week. I don't think he necessarily will replicate that. Stephon Gilmore still plays really well. The Colts have a surprisingly decent secondary, so it might not be as pretty, but they definitely will get the win.
And I think that the reason that the Giants can get the win is a good point you made right there. Like, they have a great secondary, so it's going to have to go through Saquon, I think, a lot. Only 14 carries last week, but 84 yards. You saw it yourself, like we were talking about at the game. He was really just keeping these drives alive with, like, 6-yard runs and just continuing that. The Giants have 4 scenarios. I'm not going to get into all of them. The main one is if they win this game, they will be in the playoffs. Doesn't matter if it's a 6 or 7 seed. They're going to be in there.
Got to get that dub.
Spot. Right now, Dallas has that 5th seed. There's only going to be 1 left with the Giants. If they lose, it's going to be a really tough road going into next week against Philly. But I'm going to take the Giants. They're at home. They're favored by 5.5. Go hammer that. I think that Daniel Jones played really well last week. I've been waiting for a couple 300-yard games from him. He gave me 334. 30 for 42. I can't ask for more out of him. He's rolling. He's got the Giants rolling. I think that the Indianapolis team 1-5 under Saturday, just not what you want to see. This is a game the Giants needed in their schedule. They finally got it.
All right, I like it. Let's keep this moving along. We have the New Orleans Saints making their way to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Philadelphia's favored in this one by minus 7. Over under here at 44. Philadelphia coming off of a rare loss on the entire season against the Cowboys last week. Granted, it was Gardner Minshew in last week, not Jalen Hurts, the MVP candidate. That being said, 24 for 40, 355, 2 for 2 ratio on the day. That's not bad up against an NFC East rival opponent, division opponent.
No.
And on the road, now you're going to have the home crowd. Jalen Hurts not officially ruled out for this game.
Yeah.
So he has potential to play. Expectation is, though, that they might sit him.
Yeah.
Most likely will, just because they don't want to further this injury ahead of their playoff run.
And that's like the great thing about having a viable backup is you have a guy like Gardner Minshew. He steps in last week. The offense still, it didn't look like it did under Jalen Hurts, but still Devonta Smith got it done. I mean, you're looking at this Philly and this Philly defense as well as the Saint defense. A lot of what they do is through the run game. And they're the 2 best running defenses in the league. So I think it's going to be very interesting. It may be a lot lower scoring than we saw last week in Dallas with like a 70-point total. But, last week, New Orleans is just trying to stay alive. And
absolutely.
A win here would be good. I do think Philly gets it done at home. Miles Sanders had a pretty low game last week, so I'd like to see him kind of do a little boom this week.
I like that. I think Philly's also going to get the win. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I don't know if it's going to be what they want. Both these defenses are really, really solid, but I think at the end of the day, the Eagles got the win over them 40-29 last year. I think they can kind of replicate that, just not as high scoring.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I'd hit the under on the 44. I would not. I'd stay away from that spread of -7.
Yeah.
I like a 3-4
the Saints
point win.
are, they are a good defense. So
Great
defense. I
defense.
don't think Minshew is going to throw for 355 like he did last week. I think he kind of caught Dallas off guard last week with the fact that he was kind of starting midweek. But these teams have never, they've faced the last 4 years and they have been very high scoring games. So
Yeah.
Philly at home. Don't think they're going to be taking their third loss this week.
All right, I love it. Let's keep this moving along. This is a game that no one really cares about unless you're fans of them. The Arizona Cardinals are making their way to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Now, the reason why no one cares about this game is both teams are out for the playoffs. There's not a lot on the line for them. Atlanta's favored this by -3.5. Over under here at 41.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Falcons. Arizona Cardinals might still be with Trace McSorley. He cannot throw the ball to DeAndre Hopkins, it appears. They have Colt McCoy. That might be a little bit better, but there's no Budda Baker for this team. He is the lifeblood of that defense. He is not going to be around. They just heard that J.J. Watt is now retiring. Great for J.J. Watt. Again, first ballot Hall of Famer. Love the dude. Should have won the MVP a few years back. So I do like them, and I don't like them in this one. I just don't think that they have enough. There's not enough for this team to want to go out there and win and want to go out there and play, I think, at the moment. And it's kind of evident the last few weeks. In the second half, they just don't seem to be there. So I like the Falcons in this one.
Yeah, I like the Falcons at home. I think that they blew their season when it came down to that Baltimore loss. And, it hasn't been the expectation for Desmond Ridder that we expected the last couple of weeks. But the Cardinals, their defense was stepping up at the right time last week, but the Bucs won that game for good reason. There were a lot of slip-ups by that defense. It seems like unless James Conner's running for 6 yards a carry, they really can't do much. The Falcons, they have a couple of ways of beating people, and Drake London's been playing really well, so I'm going to go with them as well.
Yeah, and don't forget, this time Arizona is going to be on the road. They don't have that home crowd behind them, that extra oomph. All right, let's keep this moving along. NFC South showdown. We have the Carolina Panthers making their way to Tampa Bay to face the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay is favored in this one by -3. Over under here of 39.5. Tampa wins. They're in. They get the South. They secure their playoff spot. They don't need to worry again for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So I am going. I'm going with them. It's not the season everyone was expecting for them. They're still 7-8. I think they're going to get to 8-8. They're going to get the South. The Panthers had a great game last week. The odds that you run for 250 yards in the first half again, though, highly unlikely. Not just because the Tampa Bay has a good run defense, but just replicating that and also going up 21-7 by midway through the second quarter. Hard to do. Hard to replicate that. So I do think that this is not going to be the same game for Carolina. Darnold got lost in that shuffle of a great running attack from Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard last week. He had a solid output overall. Just played really efficient. Hopefully he can recreate that and maybe secure a spot on the 2023 roster that he's kind of playing for at this moment. But I like Tampa Bay. Tom Brady knows what's on the line, and I will say this now ahead of the playoffs if they win this game. No one wants to see Tom Brady in the playoffs. I don't care what this team's record. The playoffs are a totally different animal, and this entire team has been there.
Yeah, and they're like you said, at the risk of winning this division.
They get a home game.
Possibly having, at best maybe finishing 9-8, and they're going to have a home game, and most likely they're going to be playing the Cowboys, who are the 5th seed. So at the 4th seed, and there's a point, me and Sean were talking about this off camera, but there are two ways that goes. Either Dallas goes in and does what they've been doing and go off, or you have to deal with Tom Brady in the second round, which could be really scary for some of these NFC teams.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Vikings, honestly, in that respect. And also, I do just want to say, the year they won the Super Bowl, they had to go on the road the entire time.
Yeah.
And until they made it to the Super Bowl, then they had the home team.
Yeah, and you'd be shocked that he's had to do it so few times. But I think the Panthers here, we're talking about with the Giants, it's a win and get in scenario for you in a favorable matchup. And without J.C. Horn, as Sean mentioned on the Thursday show, now out for an indefinite time with this surgery. That guy, he was one of the best corners this entire year, and now you're going to have nothing against Mike Evans and Godwin, who kind of have been underperforming. They need to get it going, too. I want to just mention that. The statistical output from everybody but Leonard Fournette last week was very disappointing. I got to shout him. Leonard Fournette, 20 carries on the ground. First time we've seen that in a long time. 9 catches in the air. 29 touches for Leonard Fournette.
Absolutely great. Yeah, that's what they want.
That's December Buccaneers successful football that we've seen the last 2 years.
That's exactly what they want. Let's keep this moving along. When we have the Cleveland Browns making their way to Washington to take the Commanders here. Washington is favored in this one by -2.5. Over under here 40.5. Commanders currently hold the 7th seed. Browns are officially eliminated, which is not what they were hoping for when they brought Deshaun Watson in, who is on the worst 4-game stretch of his entire career currently.
I was going to say, it's not Brissett that brought this onto them, the fact that they've been eliminated early. It's the fact that the last 5 games that he's played, they have been losing. And they had that win a couple of weeks ago, and he was hyped. And now it's like you're saying, the worst QBR you can get over a 4-game span this season, especially from him. That's not what you want to see. Now they got to go on the road. The Commanders have been playing great at home.
Yep.
And Brian
Good
Robinson
defense.
has been playing great. And Chase Young is officially not on a snap count this week.
Yep.
So
he gets a home crowd.
I think that this is a big week for, the receivers for Washington to prove that they can go up against a really top-tier secondary. Like, that's the one thing the Browns really shut you down with is their secondary and Myles Garrett. Can their offensive line hold the defensive line of the Cleveland Browns? It's really going to be on the offense because I do think that the Commanders' defense is way better than the Cleveland offense. I
Absolutely.
just don't know if the Commanders' offense is going to be able to take on a very tough defense. Because that's the issue in Cleveland. It's not their defense. It's their offense.
Heineke did get benched in the middle of the game, but he didn't play terribly in the game. I wouldn't be too worried about that one. I think just at that point of the game, there was like 4 or 5 drives. They're just not moving the ball with him anymore. And, the clock's beginning to wind down. Game's looking to be a little bit out of reach. So I wouldn't look too much into the Wentz being brought in. I think at that point, Ron Rivera is really just saying, we're not going to risk you getting injured. We're just going to kind of play for next week. We're still in this. We still have a chance for this going on next week with the home crowd. So I like them in this one. Again, don't read too much into the Tyler Heineke benching in the middle of the game. Wentz is not going to be the answer for this team at the moment. And hopefully Terry can continue to have a tear that he has been with Wentz, man.
Yeah, man, over 1,000 yards for him. Also shout out to Amari Cooper, man. First season in Cleveland, despite the fact that it's been very dysfunctional. He's also hit the 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns there. I like Cooper this week though for a touchdown. I think the Commanders do let wide receiver ones kind of slip by. But this is, like I said, with the Giants, with the Bucs, this is a situation in the NFC where there are not a lot of playoff spots, and you have 1 week after this to get things right. It's time for them to go win. So that's the key for me.
All right, I love it. Let's keep it moving along into our good games. We have the Chicago Bears making their way to Detroit to take on the Lions. Lions favoring this one by -6. Over under here of 52 points. They are expecting a ton of points in this one. These teams met in Week 10, and the Lions won 31-30. Great back and forth game. Tons of fun at Soldier Field. A little bit different in this one though, because they are going to be indoors.
Yeah, so I think that affects definitely. I think the Lions at home, it's been interesting to see. They've had some really high-scoring games at home, some low-scoring. I think that this is going to, again, be, kind of a high-scoring game like we saw. Both these defenses are very leaky to the run games. I see the fact that, Justin Fields was able to score last week. Me and Sean were talking about DeAndre Swift last time he played in this game. 8 fantasy points, but he's still got a chance to score. Everybody scores in these matchups between the Lions and the Bears. I think that this is a really good opportunity for both these teams to look at their quarterbacks, if you ask me. Jared Goff has been playing great, 25-42, 355, 3-0 last week with his touchdowns. Despite the loss, he's been playing better than, we all worried when they had the number 2 overall pick this year. Are they going to get a quarterback?
And it doesn't look like they'll need to.
I don't think that they're going to need to, and I think that they're going to be able to use another pick they're getting from the Rams this year to build around him. The Lions still in the NFC fight, so I'm going to go with them. They need to win this game, and it needs to be competitive. I do believe that this last couple weeks is going to come down to some tiebreakers. So it starts here, beating Chicago, and it's unfortunate because Chicago's already been out, but it's I don't know. How do you feel about them?
I actually like the Bears in this one, and I know it's like, oh, they're out, their offense, their defense is not good, and all these things, and it's all stacked against them. But there's one thing that every team in this position gets to play for in this specific game.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are you going on the road and facing your division opponent, you're facing a division opponent with a chance to make the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
No one wants to see their opponent in the playoffs, especially from their division. No one wants that. There has to be one. It's required by the NFL.
Yeah.
It's required.
Yeah.
You don't want to see anyone else in there. And if you have an opportunity to knock them out of the playoffs by giving them a loss and the few other things around the NFL get to go right, or you just make them suffer for one more week, I think that the Bears will love that. And I think back to just a few years ago when Chicago had all their starters play against the Vikings in Week 18 to win, and we got in.
Yeah.
They were already in. And they still started their starters out there.
Yeah.
We got our ass whooped, man.
Yeah.
And we did not make the playoffs. And that sucks. That sucks as the opponent. So I think go out there, Justin Fields. Go out there, Chicago Bears. Be spoilers to this Lions season. You want to you want to take such a great story, such a great hard knock, such a great 1-6 start. Now all of a sudden they're 7-8 and there's a chance for the playoffs. The first time in 30 years to maybe get a win in the playoffs and all these different things. And then you can just say, but they lost to the Bears.
Yeah, and they didn't make it. And it'd
be that
classic.
Be that ending. Be that
them
ending,
to do
Chicago. Be the spoiler to your opponent's Cinderella story. Don't let them have the ending that they want.
Just like ruining an opponent's dream, like Sean said, that's kind of a beautiful thing in the NFL. So I think, I mean, I like the Lions at home still. They're favored by 6, but I'll tell you, they're favored by 6. I feel like Chicago has gotten ahead in these games that you don't expect them to, and the Lions defense can definitely let them do that.
Lions are not the Bills, and the Justin Fields and the Bears were in it in the first half.
Yeah, so I think that it's a chance. But Detroit at home, I'm loving the story for them to make the playoffs. On
Absolutely.
The other side.
All right, let's keep us moving along in our good games. We have the Houston Texans hosting the first place AFC South Jacksonville Jaguars. All right.
That whole sentence is a mess.
It's a mess. All of it.
And you didn't make a mistake.
I did make a mistake. I said it backwards compared to what I normally phrase it. It felt like so long. I think it was like week 4 was the last time we were saying that they were in first place. And here Jacksonville is, masters of their own future, completely in their hand. A win and a loss to the Titans this Thursday, potentially. And a win for them. And I mean, they're in the playoffs, man.
I mean, it could be huge, and we'll know, by Thursday night, what
we don't know at the time of this episode's being made, but we will know come Friday when this episode is released.
Yeah, and once we do, I'm sure, we're going to be reacting like, wow, I can't believe that, Jacksonville is ahead. Like right now, they have really sprung the end of the season, and they have said, we just got to try to win. And that's Doug Peterson right there.
Dougie P.
The one thing that makes me nervous is Jacksonville is favored by 4, and I just want people to understand something crazy about the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans, they only got 2 wins on the whole season. One of them is against Jacksonville. And the crazy thing is now you're sitting there and you're saying, wow, how is Trevor Lawrence not going to tear up this defense? I mean, last time they played, it was a 13-9 game. They're figuring out something. There's something about the receivers that they can't do. Maybe Jacksonville makes some adjustments this game, but they have, dating back to October 2018, have lost 9 straight games to Houston, home and away. So I will use my surprise pick this week and go with the Texans at home. Like Sean said in the last game, nothing better than kind of ruining your opponent. And Jacksonville, Tennessee, they're going to have to kind of battle it out next week and try to see who's going to win this division. If they both lose, that's a scenario a lot of people aren't talking about either. If one wins, the other wins, that's great. But next week, it's going to come down to some real stuff when it's, if they're one game in between. And Trevor Lawrence in 3 games has a 65 passer rating. He has less than 300 yards a game, and he has 3 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in 3 games against the Texans. So, hate to do it, hate to kill the Jags' momentum, but somehow, some way, the Texans are going to stay in these games. It's weird, even though we've said it, the Kansas City game, 14.5. They send them to overtime. They did the same thing with the Dallas spread of 17.5 a couple weeks ago. And this week, Jacksonville was only favored by 4. I think it's a surprise thing here. Hey, look, this is a huge surprise, huge reach, but not unfathomable.
Look, I would love to go with the Texans, but I'll defer from you. I will go Jacksonville because you won't be the spoilers because they deserve it. All right, Texans. You will not spoil this for Jacksonville, all right? Destiny is in their hands. They deserve the Cinderella story, not the Lions.
Yeah.
All right? And the Lions was totally different. It's not because I'm a Vikings fan. It is.
He's like 30% of it, though.
Like 99.99% of it is. But no, I think that this is like fully Jacksonville's. This is up to them. They win it and they're in it. They secure everything that they need to. It will be a great story for Trevor Lawrence. I think that this is like the moment. I do agree with you though. There's every part of every deep down in my gut says Texans. Really doing this to go against you. Yeah. I think that I like the way that the Trevor Lawrence has been playing. The entire team has been playing. I thought they really stepped up in New York against the Jets on a short week. They get the long week to prepare for the Texans, a little bit of extra time.
Or maybe extra too much rest.
Yeah, a little bit too much rest. They enjoy the holiday a little bit too much maybe with that extra rest. No, but I think that this defense has been playing really well for Jacksonville. They're making turnovers, that kind of stuff. Hopefully Trayvon Walker's in this one, but they're masters of their destiny right now. Let's go Jacksonville. Let's get this win. Let's see you guys in the playoffs for the first time since 2017.
Since the Blake Bortles era.
Oh, yeah. Remember that time?
Don't forget about the boat.
Could have been the Blake Bortles versus Case Keenum Super Bowl that we never got but should have gotten, deserved.
Just a good part of the multiverse of madness in football, bro.
I love it. Let's keep this moving. We have the Miami Dolphins making their way to New England to take on the Patriots. New England's here in this one, -2.5. Over-under here of 42. I am going with New England off the bat. Yep. Tua's in the concussion protocol. If anyone hasn't seen the fan video that's been circulating of the hit, take a look at it. He just falls down, hits his head on the ground really hard. After that, he went on to be like 7 for 18. You were saying 3 interceptions. It was totally different from the first half of what we were seeing from him. So I don't expect him to be in this one, despite him not being listed as out officially as of right now, which means that Skylar Thompson or Teddy Bridgewater will be in. And I just think that Bill Belichick can easily put together a scheme for a backup or a third-string quarterback.
I think it's going to be a big run game. We saw like Ramondre Stevenson kind of underperform last week. The Dolphins have had 2 heartbreaking losses in the last 2 weeks to the Packers and the Bills back to back. And with Tua out, I'm definitely going to go with New England. The fact is 2.5 spread. Always hate those, but I think it's going to increase throughout the week, especially as we learn a little bit more about Tua's status. At the end of the day, Skylar Thompson still has guys like Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. Huge shout out to him. 5 for 143 in one last week. Jalen Waddle, he had an 83-yard touchdown right out the gate. That really, kind of helped them get going. But this week, the defense of the Patriots has been creating a lot of turnovers, getting defensive touchdowns or special teams, putting them in a lot of good spaces where Mac Jones doesn't necessarily need to throw a lot of yards every game, but he's getting things done. Everybody's getting involved. Kendrick Bourne, 100-yard game last week. Jacoby Myers, a tipped-off touchdown last week. So I'm going to go with New England at home. I think they're playing well enough, and I think that Ramondre Stevenson kind of bounces back this week.
All right, I like that. Let's keep it moving along. We have the San Francisco 49ers making their way to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. 49ers favored in this one by -6. 4:05 p.m. game. I'm going with the 49ers off the bat. I said it last week with the Raiders. They had the Cinderella ending to the – I keep referencing Cinderella. My word. They had a Cinderella ending in that game.
It's a Cinderella time right now.
It really is. It's the holiday season.
Underdogs sneaking their way into the playoffs.
And I don't know, but the Raiders had this great ending, interception fumble to Chandler Jones, and then the touchdown. I told everyone they were going to come back and just disappoint.
Yeah.
I can feel it in my bones. And it's not so much that they're going to disappoint this game. I think that the 49ers are the best team in football right now, and I think it's easy to get lost in the Bills and the Eagles for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that they're on a third-string quarterback who is not expected to play. They weren't expected to be playing Jimmy G at all this season. Many people didn't expect him to suit up for the 49ers, including ourselves here at Just Saying. And here they are with a rookie Mr. Irrelevant who's just been playing lights-out football.
Yeah.
George Kittle's the first receiver since Terrell Owens in 2002 to have multiple receiving touchdowns in a game in back-to-back games. I just think that they're playing great. This defense is number one in every single category that matters, and they're just playing great football. The 49ers are the team that's really terrifying right now. I think that the Raiders will have a solid game. I think this will be a really, really good game. I'll happily think that this will be like a 30-24 win, but I just don't think the Raiders have enough to slow down the 49ers offensively or defensively at all.
Yeah, and Josh Jacobs, last week in Pittsburgh, a season low 15 for 44 yards, and definitely was not happy after the game. This is not like the old Battle of the Bays, when you had, this is now you got the Raiders in Vegas. So you're sitting there and you're in Vegas and you're like, okay, it's a totally different new era, but it's the same old Raiders, man. I mean, this is crazy. They are 6-9, and we were expecting them. I mean, I even remember they started like 1-4, and we were like, this is so disappointing. And they started building their way back up, and they just keep killing themselves, even in these games that are like the ones that they're winning. And I mean, the Raiders right now, Raiders fans, you want a little. So you're saying there's a chance. Opportunity, your playoff percentage is 1.25%. That is some scary stuff when you play in the third seed in the NFC. Sean said it. The best defense, possibly the best team, and they don't even got their quarterback or their top receiving option, and they are finding new ways to get it done. Niners all the way. I mean, 6-point favorites. Jeez, oh my God.
I'll hit the over
I'll
on that
hammer
one.
that.
Hammer that spread easily.
But yeah, 8-game win streak for the Niners. They're about to make it 9.
I like that. All right. Moving this along, we have the New York Jets making their way to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Jets are favored in this one, -2.5. 42-point over-under in this one. Mike White is back. New York can rejoice. You can be super happy. And also Zach Wilson will just be dressed in street clothes. He'll be inactive for this game.
Yeah.
Nothing to worry about. He won't be stepping on the field to ruin it.
I mean, I hope they at least give him a coat while he's standing there on the sideline. Dude,
he can have hand warmers, and that's it.
That's it. But it's just unbelievable what we saw last week. Zach getting benched for a practice squad quarterback. And then Robert Saleh saying, "This is not the last time you'll see him." I mean, if you bench a guy in a 9-point game in the middle of the third quarter on prime time, what? Second quarter.
No, he's been inactive twice this season.
Twice.
This
you
is
were going to say second.
No, if you think about this, I'm so sorry.
But this is the second time that this has had to happen to him. He's like a kid getting timeout.
Everything that you're saying, he got benched in the game. He's inactive for the next couple weeks. This is not. I don't know. It's
Sean
not good.
predicted a downfall, but geez, not like this.
Never like this. I would never wish this upon anyone. All this being said, I like the Jets though in this one. I wanted to go Seattle originally before the episode started, but for some reason, it's not just like Mike White's back, and so therefore they can win. Yeah, it's not Magic Mike. It's not him. No, I really think that the Jets defense is so freaking good. I think I say it week in and week out. They have a playoff-ready defense. DJ Reed not getting any Pro Bowl nods clearly shows why this is a popular vote, not necessarily always skill-based, because he's been playing as one of the best cornerbacks in all the NFL. They have the best cornerback duo in the entire NFL, I fully believe. Seattle's defense is not great. They're 29th in defense, which has just been killing them, and they're giving up 25.3 points per game. That's just not. It's not a recipe to win.
1-5 in the last 6 weeks. We're talking about downfalls.
Yep. And Garrett Wilson, Mike White have a good rapport. I like that the Jets. I really like the Jets in this one. And one of the things I think that since the dawn of the Legion of Boom, the issue with Seattle's defense is that they cannot defend the tight end, and we've been seeing that the last few weeks. Jordan Brooks is having a Pro Bowl caliber season, even potentially an All-Pro caliber season. He's leading the league in tackling. He's really stepped out of his rookie season, where a lot of people thought he was going to be a bust. I will just say this: that has always been their Achilles heel, and he's been struggling in that pass protection against the tight ends. So guys like CJ Uzoma and Tyler Conklin, but I think they could potentially have a day. We saw George Kittle. We saw George Kittle get two touchdowns against them a few weeks ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if it can happen again. I like the Jets in this one for their defense.
Yeah, they're definitely looking at the fact that, like you said, that's a great weakness for them to expose, and a weakness that the Jets will be able to, especially with Woolen on Wilson all day. He's going to have to be checking down. I definitely want to see the Jets running back step up. That's one thing Seattle is going to be trying to do, is manage the clock with Kenneth Walker. The kid's got 800 yards on the season in like 10 games. I mean, you got to respect his game. We knew he was going to be a beast, and Seattle, obviously he was struggling. The whole team was struggling when he was out. So I think that now it's the best scenario for both teams. They're both healthy. They both have their stars in. But I do like the Jets. This is a very tough place for them to play, but it's a very easy defensive matchup, and Seattle is collapsing right now. This is definitely going to be a high-scoring game. I will say that. I do think that Geno's got 27 touchdowns and only 9 picks on the season. You got to shout him out for that. But on the other hand, his defense has been killing him. The Jets have been taking advantage of bad defenses all season.
Yep.
That's how their offense starts to look really good. And who can who can get them the most potential outside of Mike White? Nobody on their team right now,
Absolutely
obviously.
All right. Jets, you guys heard it here. All right, let's keep this moving. We have the Battle of SoFi Stadium this afternoon at 4:25 when the Los Angeles Rams go to the other locker room to take on the LA Chargers.
Who gets the home locker room?
I guess the Chargers in this one. So they're going on a different side of this one. LA Chargers are favored in this one. I can't just say LA. It's going to get too confusing. The Chargers are favored in this one by -6.5. 40.5 point over under in this one. Now the Rams fucking dominated dominated the Broncos.
They were the Krampus to the Broncos last week.
That was just so. I mean, Cam Akers.
What a beat! Sean's like, "Do I start Cam Akers?" I'm like, "Who knows?" And boom,
Boom.
It just
23 carries, 118 yards, and just a
freaking hat trick.
3 touchdown, a hat trick on the day. Just fucking fantastic. I absolutely love that.
And then you got Eckler on the other side, two
touchdowns. Eckler
in prime time last week.
Eckler playing like the best running back in football that no one wants to talk about.
I know.
Everyone gives a lot of love to CMC for his ability to run the ball and to catch the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And Austin Eckler, the last 4 seasons.
Dude's
actually.
got like 120 targets by the way on the season.
Since go back to when Melvin, you want to put on some tape of Austin Eckler. Go back to when Melvin Gordon was around and when you'd watch the then backup Austin Eckler coming in and dominating the field.
Yeah, like Melvin would go out and he had 15 catches.
Yeah, just does not give enough credit to Austin Eckler, I feel like, in the NFL. He just absolutely deserves it. I'm going with the Chargers in this one. I've said it for fucking years. Sorry for cursing, but that they deserve to be in the playoffs. And they're finally in the playoffs. At long last, the Chargers are in the playoffs. I love it.
After 3 years has finally come true.
It's finally come true.
I remember this time last year, the Chargers got beat by the Raiders. Hurt your dream.
So close.
The one thing I'll say though, Baker last week, 28 for 24, Nickelodeon VP last week, pretty awesome. But the one thing was, I mean, he was so composed. Denver has a defense that gets after you. They couldn't do anything to him last week. He was going through the progressions. He's obviously spent time learning this playbook. But I got to say, it's time for the Chargers to start making that mark. We were excited about the Raiders. We were excited about the Broncos. Well, it's December. Reality has hit, and the Chargers are the second best team in the AFC West without question. They deserve to be in this, and beating a team like the Rams should be an easy feat for them. The Rams are kind of in the same place as the Colts, to me, like very mediocre this season. Yeah. And we saw what the Chargers did to the Colts last week.
All right. I love it. Let's keep this moving along. So we have our games of the week about to kick off. Sunday Night Football, Pittsburgh Steelers making their way to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Baltimore is favored in this one by -3. Over under here of 36 points. These teams met back in Week 14. It's a few weeks ago, and Baltimore won 16-14. Still potentially no Lamar Jackson in this one. Now, Pittsburgh not out of the playoffs yet. Baltimore and Cincinnati in, so we could see 3 teams with the AFC North make the playoffs if they win this week and next week.
Yeah, I mean, and as we always talk about, Tomlin hates losing records, never had one. If they win out the next 2 games, they'd be in the playoffs and they'd have 9-8, which would keep that streak alive. This week, I am going to go
want
with
it to stay alive.
On the road. I'm going to go with them on the road.
Love that.
If Lamar is not playing, it's guaranteed. If Lamar is playing, I think that what we saw last week against the Raiders, not only that Franco Harris looking down on this beautiful team on the anniversary of his beautiful play and an awesome comeback by
George
a lot of
Pickens
young guys.
For the game-winning touchdown.
Huge, George Pickens. Najee was making some amazing plays. At the end of the game, obviously that team was rallying around each other, and I think they do that this week. The Ravens, I think they're going to be taking the foot off the gas pedal a little bit now that they've locked up a playoff spot. They're just going to try to get healthy, try to get their minds right.
That's all they can do at the moment.
Yeah, it's really all they're in a position to do. I mean, man, last week they got the win, even though Tyler Huntley only 9 for 17, 115. Not a bad game, but, I mean, when you're only giving your quarterback 28 opportunities in general and 11 of them are rushing, how much can you expect from him? Not much. I do think the Steelers' defense is going to be playing very hard. They're going to be trying to make this playoff run. I see what they did last week to Jacobs, 15 for 44. I think the same thing happens to Dobbins this week, and the Steelers go get one on the road.
Oh, yeah, everything. I was pointing earlier, making little hand gestures towards Jack, because I agree. I think everything you're saying is kind of exactly what I'm thinking. I think if Lamar is in this game, I don't know if he will be. There hasn't anything been confirmed by the Baltimore. They might want to bring him in for this game just to get him back into like game speed, get him ready for the playoffs, and then maybe sit him next week. If Lamar's in for whatever reason, don't know why they put him in. I'll lean a little bit more towards Baltimore, but as of right now, in this moment, I love the Steelers in this one. I think that this defense is going to step up, especially if it's Tyler Huntley. Their offense isn't great, the Steelers. They're the third worst scoring offense in the NFL. They're only scoring 17.6 points per game. It's not what you want to see. Yeah. But you've seen just subtle improvement, slow improvement from Kenny Pickett just based on his reads, his dropbacks, his understanding of offense, the NFL game speed, all things that you want to see him grow as they're now in this late game stretch where these games begin to matter a little bit more. And, the Steelers have a division game this week. They get a home division game next week against the Browns. Stay tuned for Just Saying. Some things in the work of potentially us being in Pittsburgh. But for me, I think that they're playing for Mike Tomlin. People love him. They want to keep this record alive for him. They have a chance of making the playoffs here. They got a chance to beat their division opponent. We were talking about it all episode, beating your division opponent, getting your end of the story that you want, not the story that they want. Don't let the Ravens ruin your season, Pittsburgh. No one thought you were going to make the playoffs. I didn't think you were going to make the playoffs. Jack didn't think you were going to make the playoffs. I don't think a lot of Steelers fans thought you guys were going to make the playoffs. Surprise everyone. Show why Mike Tomlin is fucking...
Is Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, and is like...
He is him.
He's like literally, right behind, like Bill Belichick. I mean, he's in that Bill Belichick, Andy Reid. Like,
he's got the Super Bowls. He's in the playoffs every year.
He's got the wins.
Titles, wins, everything.
So, I mean, don't sleep on Mike Tomlin.
Them their way out of these next two games in divisional games.
It's Mikey
Tomlin. One on the road, one on the home. Yeah.
All right.
But, yeah, Mikey Tomlin, Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore's favored by 3-2, so that's a nice little underdog. Throw that in the parlay.
Yeah, throw that in there. Maybe you can live bet it if you want. All right.
Yeah.
Our last game of the week and our last game of the episode, we have my Minnesota Vikings making their way to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Green Bay's favoring this one by -3, over under here of 47. What are your thoughts going into this one? Obviously, you saw the Vikings play firsthand.
I did, and obviously I was mad, but I can't be mad at a guy kicking 61 yards. The Giants are the team that's done that the most in the last 50 years, have allowed the most 60 yards. So I saw that, I'm like, oh no. And but you got to give it to it. The Vikings fight. They get to the end of the game, and they win the game. They have Jefferson, they have Thielen, they have T.J. Himminson, who is officially T.J. Himminson after his game last week.
Yeah, 13 receptions, 109 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including a great touchdown reception, which I thought
double cover.
Yeah, I didn't think that he was going to catch that at all. And that was on a 3rd and 1.
So mad about that.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that one. I'm going with Minnesota in this one. I'm worried about Green Bay. I don't want to see Green Bay in the playoffs. I don't want to deal with Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. It's giving me anxiety thinking about them in the playoffs, and I don't like that. I don't want to deal with that kind of anxiety. I'm in the fantasy finals right now, and that's already stressful enough. So I can't deal with more of this, Minnesota. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, buddy.
I'm chilling.
So I've been talking a lot about this episode. You're in charge of the story, Jacksonville. You're in charge of the story, Chicago. Minnesota is in charge of the story. We opened the season with a blowout win against Green Bay.
Yeah.
That is the only blowout win of the season. Everything else has been one possession wins.
Just heart attack after heart attack.
And it's been intense. And it's I don't like it. Green Bay still has a chance at the playoffs, which is surprising. Had really thought Miami was going to ruin it for them this week. Mm-hmm. So Minnesota ruined their season. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go out there.
Do the opposite.
Do the opposite of what we have gotten to be on the receiving end for so many years, which is a swept by the Packers, 0 playoff hopes in the end of the season, and just kind of utter sadness. Let's give them a taste of their own medicine that we've been doled out for year after year after year. I think that we have the offense to do it. Our defense, though, especially our secondary, is going to need to step up in this one, especially up against Christian Watson. He didn't have 2 overthrown balls and a botched handoff last week, prevented him from scoring and getting more plays, but he's definitely their guy. You got to watch out for him. But come on, Minnesota, let's ruin the Green Bay Packers season. Zadarius Smith, have a fucking day. Let's get 3 sacks, my guy.
Yeah, I wanted to see the Packers, originally kind of win this game, because if they somehow get the 7th seed and the Vikings are the 2nd seed, then they got to go to Minnesota and basically do the same thing and play again in 2 weeks. So the one thing that I think here is that the Vikings last week against the Giants were throwing so many blitzes at them. Obviously, that's the Wink Martindale kind of defense, but what the Vikings have been able to do is they really are able to control the clock. They're able to get their passing game down, and they're able to stop a lot of teams on third downs. The run game for the Packers last week, A.J. Dillon had 11 carries. He was a lot more involved. But then you got Aaron Jones. I don't know what the hell is going on with Aaron Jones. You get 8 touches, and you get 34 total yards in a game where, I understand that they were behind. I understand that they were in situations where they were set up to maybe do more of a power running scheme. But if you want to not have to go down to it with Miami at the end, you need to be able to beat those teams better than a game-stealing interception. It wasn't the offense that won that game. So for me, it's really about the fact that, Green Bay is fighting, but I don't think that the Vikings have been able, like you said, to close out these games to win. That is why they are 12-3. So I'm going to go with them right out the gate. I think that Jefferson Jair Alexander is probably going to be one of the best back and forth for corners and wide receivers all week. But, the Packers are at home, and this just kind of seems like you're saying, like, it's either you get to the playoffs, you do your thing, or I could see a very upset Aaron Rodgers interview at the end of this where he's like, yeah, well, maybe it's time to think about other things.
I would love that. Let's have that outcome, Minnesota. Let's see if that can happen. All right. That's all the time we have, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Make sure to set up your fantasy lineups. This is, depending on how your fantasy football works, this is your last week maybe.
I know.
So enjoy it.
If you're in the championship like Shawnzy, make sure to set those lineups. Make sure to...
No Thursday night flexes.
Yeah, no Thursday night flexes, obviously. And the fact is here, if you're in the toilet bowl like me, just make sure you don't got to do that punishment anywhere in between. Just enjoy the fact that you may have a higher draft pick next year. But enjoy it. Week 17 is over. We got one more week left for you. It's going to be wild. We have New Year's coming, so Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
And just always enjoy us, justsayingfootball.com, Just Saying Football on YouTube and Spotify. Go subscribe there. Get notifications every time that we post Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Instagram, Just Saying No G, WJS, for all your article video updates. Thank you guys for checking us out.
Enjoy.